Hey everybody, Jeff here from the RevitKid.com. Today I'm going to do something a little different, something I've never actually done before. So for those of you who are following the channel or following my blog, you may know that DIY Dynamo, which is right here as you can see, which is my online course for those of you wanting to learn Dynamo for Revit, is enrollment is open this week. So at the time of this recording and when you're watching it, it's the week of December 2nd, 2019. This is the winter session, so if you're interested in learning Dynamo for Revit, then head on over to DIYDynamo.com. So today what I'm going to do is, I know myself when I'm looking to purchase something, whether it's enrolling in a course or a forum or maybe buying a new fishing rod or something like that, I do like to look at video reviews and testimonials and referrals from other sources. And so what I decided to do is actually interview a previous student of DIY Dynamo, and that would be sort of a referral slash review for you guys to get a sense of what DIY Dynamo is about from his mouth and not mine. I can say things all day long, but hearing it from a previous student is extremely valuable in my opinion. So Tom is actually the student who you'll be hearing from in a minute, and he is from Texas. Tom was one of the very first students, which was back in 2017 in DIY Dynamo, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself. And as usual, if you enjoy this video and you enjoy the content on this channel, please subscribe below and give me a thumbs up. So without further ado, let's hop into the interview. Also, let me know what you think about the interview. It's the first time I've really done anything like this, so comment below and let me know what you think about that and if you want me to do more stuff like this. So talk to everyone later, and again, if you're interested in Dynamo, please check out DIY Dynamo. It'll be linked below, and it also can be found at DIYDynamo.com. So I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the RevitKid.com. I'm Jeff. I'm here with Tom Flaherty. Tom, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
So I'm doing something a little different. Can't say I've ever actually interviewed anybody before, so this will be kind of interesting on my end. And Tom's volunteered to help, so thanks, Tom. Tom is actually a student of mine. I think the very first. Were you the first enrollment, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, so the first ever session of DIY Dynamo, which is my beginner's course in Dynamo. And so I asked Tom to sort of come on and chat with me about his experience, sort of about him and his background, and why he decided to take the course and what he thought about it. And so thanks, Tom, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Jeff. I appreciate you asking.
Sure. So just get right into it, I guess. Tell everyone about yourself.
I've been in the architectural field for about 30 years now. Got my degree at the University of Houston in '91. So actually started in the field while I was still a student. So I always have done it using some type of computer-aided design drafting program.
What were you using in '91?
Oh my God, it was a company out of El Paso. I believe it was called AccuGraph. We had to run it on a dedicated HP machine. And so the whole setup was like $20,000 per seat.
Was it a big machine? I bet it was a pretty tall machine, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty massive.
Yeah.
And we had the old RGB cables on the back. It was spectacular.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, and of course, I've used all kinds of crazy programs like MegaDraw, AutoCAD, VisionRes, or AmeriCAD, which used to sit on top of AutoCAD, which has since become VisionRes. And been using Revit now for about 10 years, I think. In an office environment, I've always had my own license. I've always been playing around with it. And,
now,
my dad was
I'm sorry to interrupt, but was the office you were working at, were you the only one using Revit from the beginning? Or was it sort of an office-wide thing?
Yeah, no, the first office that I worked at where we started using it, I was the only guy. And we were kind of a beta site for Safeway, they were making the switch over to Revit at their corporate office. And so my company sent me out there, and they knew I had some experience, some exposure to Revit. So I went out there and we helped Safeway develop some of their families.
Mm-hmm.
And then in March of 2000 or 2001, Safeway started cutting back on how many stores they were building. And that was the firm that I worked for. That was their bread and butter. So, and I was the CAD manager, completely overhead. Here when they're cutting back employees, the guys that are over there are the first ones out the door. So,
and what year was that?
That was, I think, 2000 or 2001, somewhere in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now I do, the firm that I work for now is actually the same firm that I started with in 1989. And we do primarily residential work, mostly for production home builders.
Mm. Very cool. So that's pretty neat, because I know you and I have had plenty of discussions online. So it's always nice to chat about folks using Revit for residential, because I know I don't think it's as big of a deal anymore, but I know in the beginning when I was learning Revit, there's this whole big sort of stigma that Revit's not for residential work. It's only for big boxes and big commercial stores and stuff. And so I know the reasons for it were valid at some, to some extent, but at the same time, I think, in my personal opinion, it's there's not much of an argument anymore. You can definitely do it with residential as well as commercial.
You can. There are still some things that Revit, in my opinion, doesn't do quite right for residential stuff, but we can kind of trick it and make it look good enough.
Awesome. So what led you to wanting to learn Dynamo?
Yeah. So my dad was a computer programmer, worked at Texas Instruments, and he was self-taught. He actually had a degree in physics and taught himself computer programming. So I've always kind of had a bug, an interest in programming and automating stuff. I tinkered a little bit with AutoLisp when we were doing AutoCAD, and when Revit first came out, there wasn't an avenue for customizing it and automating things, and now there is, and there's just a lot of tedious, repetitive tasks we do, and when you do stuff for a production builder. And so I looked at macros and I played around with that a little bit, and then I don't even recall when I first heard about Dynamo, but it seemed like an easier avenue to learn and to be able to automate some of the tasks that we do. And again, so I started learning a little bit on my own, and I heard of your website and the Revit Kit and the BIM After Dark stuff from another associate, and so I checked it out. And then when you did that DIY Dynamo class, I was like, this sounds perfect. Just it's the right kind of learning environment for me. Some guys can learn it through reading a book, but I'm more of a hands-on visual kind of Q&A person. So it was the perfect class for guys that learn the way that I learned.
Yeah. Did you were you familiar with visual programming before taking the course, the nodes and connections and wires, or was that something kind of new to you as well?
Yeah, that was new. I mean, I went to a Revit users group meeting here in Austin, and there was someone in there, and I don't even remember what they were presenting on, but they kept talking over and over about Grasshopper and Dynamo and Rhino, and I'm like, wow, what is this stuff? I don't even know what it is. I had to check it out. But so she had a few slides that she was putting up there, and at some point I want to get into the nuts and bolts behind the nodes and everything, but right now it's just really simple to throw a graph together to do something that I just need to do on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because myself as well, I've dabbled into the Python side of it and custom nodes, and it's definitely helpful. But I've got to be honest, there's just so many custom nodes and packages out there now that there's very little that you have to do in scripting. Even someone a John Pearson or somebody out there has already done it for you. And so as much as I've tried to dabble into it, it's almost like if I can find something that's the node is created, then why bother, right?
Right. Right.
Very cool. So having gone through the course now, so you took the course. It was 2017, I think, was the first time I
Yeah.
hosted
Yeah.
this
It's
enrollment.
hard to
Wow.
believe it's been that long.
Yeah, and so, again, thank you for trusting in me back then, and I'm glad that the course worked out for you. Also, thanks. Tom has been one of the most active users, I think, in probably our Facebook group, which is awesome. So, for those of you that don't know, as a student of DIY Dynamo, you have access to a closed Facebook group where you can ask questions, work through the modules, staying along course with the class, but also asking stuff beyond. We've had some crazy Dynamo questions beyond the course material, but I want to thank you for that too. Um, so then, having gone through it, I know it's been 2 years, but what did you sort of appreciate most about the DIY Dynamo course? What was most surprising to you, or what did you? I mean, you mentioned before a little bit about the type of learner you are, but was there anything in particular that you appreciated that was in the class material itself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the two biggest things that I liked about it was the office hours that you did. Because again, that's an easy way for me to learn because as I'm working through the exercises, I have some questions I write down and then being able to have the opportunity to ask them and get some answers and get some examples.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, and this is kind of going to tie into one of the other questions we're going to talk about, is for me, DIY Dynamo, it isn't just a class, it's about getting into a community. And that's the good thing about the Facebook group is it's easier for me to just put up the script there and ask some questions and
Mm-hmm.
get almost immediately get some responses from other people in the group than to go to Dynamo BIM and search through their forums.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm asking about, maybe 2 years old, and I can't, you're not going to get a response probably on a forum post that's,
Mm-hmm.
been hashed out a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what I've found, which is nice about the community, is folks like yourself, as well as obviously I'm active in the community, trying to answer as much as I can. But we do have a few students that have definitely progressed, or maybe they already were a little more advanced in Dynamo and they took the course anyways, or whatnot. Who I'm surprised every day at I can barely even get to my phone to answer it, and someone's already answered the questions, which is pretty cool. That's always
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So
And
then.
that's actually one of the ways that when I talk to people about doing it, that's one of the things that I point out to them is like, you're not just signing up for a class, you're joining a community, whether you leave it on Facebook or you take it someplace else.
Mhm.
It's someplace that even after the class is over, you can still go back to and ask questions, get answers.
Mhm.
Um, and that's why I like sitting in when I have time to sit in on your office hours
Mhm.
because watching it again, number one, it kind of keeps that fire burning in me to learn more,
Mhm.
and seeing it 6 months later or a year later might jog another question
Mhm.
um, that I didn't ask the first time around.
Right. It's awesome. I'm glad my thoughts on having the group are unfolding. It's the first course that I've done something like that, and I think it's worked out well for sure. And I think Dynamo is one of those things where you can easily feel like you're isolated, even
Right.
within your office environment, or maybe you might be the only person learning it for initially, and so there's definitely it's definitely nice to have that sort of community, especially a community of people who've been through the same course material you have, which is great. So in going through the course, again, I'm asking you to go back 2 years. I apologize, but we've been trying to get this together for a while now. And what would you say was sort of your biggest aha moment? What was that transformation moment for you when taking the course?
Yeah. So the thing that I struggled with before I took the class when I was tinkering around myself was, you know, learning about the inputs and the outputs and making sure that the output from one node was the right type of input for the next node. And yeah, so when you explain to me, how to figure that out, and then I was able to find the right node the first time instead of experimenting with one and then getting an error message because I could look at the input and output and okay, that's the right node that can connect to this node.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was the biggest aha for me. And I don't remember if it was in the first week or the second week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
But
that's a recurring trend throughout all of Dynamo, right? It's it's making sure those nodes are connected and making sure that the output and the input match, and you have to, that to me is one of the challenges a lot of beginners run into is that, you know, this says I'm plugging into this, but why am I getting an error? And then you read the error and you realize, oh wait, I just have to convert it to, I don't know, a string or something like that, or an element, and so I'm glad that was helpful. That's awesome. So in thinking about when you were thinking about enrolling in DIY Dynamo, you know, 2 years ago when you saw that, you know, I created this course, and now being part of the community and having seen the material or run through the material, you know, who would you say is the perfect sort of student for DIY Dynamo? Who is it? If you describe the perfect student, I guess you could say yourself, but
yeah, right.
who would that be?
You know, for me, the course is really, it's kind of like a combination of novice and intermediate kind of material. The way that you present it, it's not like the basic stuff where, okay, here's this is a node, this is how you put it here. You actually like show us that, but then you also show how to connect them and create a workflow. So, I mean, I would say again, it's for anybody who's just starting out or somebody who maybe has a little bit under their belt but wants some more advanced techniques. Because I'm doing another course at LinkedIn Learning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm almost done with it, and the guy hasn't explained lacing.
Mm.
And I know that was something that we covered, and that's a pretty in-depth kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing to understand. So.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I also think it's because of the nature of Dynamo being a visual program, you know, if
Mm-hmm.
it's somebody that is a visual learner like me, they're going to pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I would say the perfect student is someone who is a visual learner, someone who isn't afraid to ask for help, you know, rather than just open up the book and plow through it and I'm going to learn it one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I think, you know, one of the things I try and do, and this is not just when I'm creating a course like DIY Dynamo, but when I'm teaching, I teach a university nearby. When I'm creating my other courses, and even in my tutorials, I I like to cut out the fat, I call it. And so, you know, maybe this isn't for everybody, but I personally feel like most of the folks who would be jumping into Dynamo, I don't necessarily need to explain the entire UI to them. You know, and I think there's certain aspects of the program where it's very easy as a trainer to feel like you need to check every single box. But the reality is, um, I believe that, you know, my students like yourself are smart enough to figure out and connect the dots in between. You know, I don't need to say this, and this, but if explain the concept, it makes it a little easier to connect the dots. And I think that in general, Revit users are probably the type of people that could easily connect those dots.
All right.
Yeah. Awesome.
So with all this teaching and stuff, when do you ever design buildings?
Very late at night.
Yeah, right.
My son just went to bed about 40 minutes ago, clean up the kitchen, and that's when I have time to do the Revit Kids stuff and you name it.
Yeah, wow.
It's all about time management, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I'm glad that you take the time to do it because I learned a lot from you. I remember the first class I took with you was another live class where you were teaching us how to create a casework family and customize the door panels and all. That was about 3 years ago, probably.
Well, RevitKid.com is over 10 years old now, so there's a lot of that. many pieces of tutorials and information there. Awesome. Well, I want to first thank you, Tom, for coming on and chatting with me. I appreciate you, and I hope that those out there watching this gain some valuable feedback from you, and hopefully they jump in and they check out DIY Dynamo for sure. Right.
Yeah, I've been recommending it to everybody. So
Awesome. And I don't know if you wanted to give any plugs to where you work or anything like that. I mean, now's your chance.
so yeah, so I work for a company called Lifestyle USA Design.
All
Again,
right.
we do mostly residential, about 90% for nationwide production home builders.
Mm,
So we're in markets from Nevada to Virginia and Texas to Minnesota. So
awesome. And I
yeah,
think I
yeah,
remember you
been
saying that
extremely comfortable watching
you're involved with a local Revit users group. Is that right?
yeah, and a few months ago, several people kind of had the same idea at one time, and that was to create a subgroup of people who were interested in programming and
Hmm.
customizing Revit. And so we do every third meeting is this programmers group does a presentation. Right now, again, it's mostly centered around Dynamo.
Mm,
That's what most of us have experience with.
awesome.
Um,
So is that Austin Revit users group? Is that what that's
yes,
part of? Awesome.
yes.
So definitely check that out. Do you guys do any streaming or any recording of anything or no?
No, we just meet at a local pub that lets us use their side room. On
All
we
good.
meet
All
on
good.
the second Tuesday of every month.
Okay. Awesome. So anyone in the Austin, Texas area, definitely check out the Austin Revit users group. I mean, if you don't know, and this is for everyone, definitely check out your local Revit users groups because we've got some awesome people out there doing some really cool things. So definitely suggest that. So that's really cool that you're involved in that, Tom, for sure. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Tom, and
Uh,
we'll definitely be talking to you soon, and I'll see you in the Facebook group for sure.
okay, sounds great.